His outside is clear. You can see every gear, the brightest, biggest gears ever seen.
Mr. Machine!
He talks. No, he squawks as he walks. Along the ground and round and round and round. You can take him apart, every gear and nut. But you can put him together and build him up. Wind him. Go on. You can't break the spring, but listen. Hear him ring?
Here he comes, greatest toy you've ever seen. And his name is Mr. Machine. He is real, and for you, he's real. And his name is Mr. Machine, Mr. Machine, Mr. Machine.
Greetings, everybody. Scott Cooper here. I hope you enjoyed that little intro of a television advertisement from the early 1950s for a toy. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about toys today, but mostly I'm going to talk about this gentleman by the name of Eddy Goldfarb, who really, in my mind, personifies what entrepreneurship after World War II was like for many entrepreneurs. And this guy really did some cool stuff. Now, when I talk about this guy, we're going to talk about toys. So why did I choose toys? There are two reasons for this. Number one, I'm surrounded by toys. I love toys, the ones that I played with as a kid. I know that you all have something that you played with as a kid, and for me, it's always about trying to find that toy that I remember at the age of 6 or 7, and then I set it on a shelf and I look at it. But that's one of the reasons. The other thing is, when I think of entrepreneurship after World War II, other than the automobile industry, I think about appliances and toys, because those are the two areas that I think blossomed after World War II. And specifically toys, think about this. And during World War II, there were new advanced plastic development. And so prior to World War II, toys were made out of cast iron. They were all right, but they weren't that much enjoyable, I guess, is the best way to look at it. They weren't colorful. They weren't light. So after World War II, new plastic development was a really big boon for the toy industry. Also, all those metal fabrication plants that were making munitions started cranking out swings, wagons. The other part of that is television. Television, as it blossomed through the late 1940s and the early 1950s, toy manufacturers really jumped on this. So that's really where I start talking about Eddy Goldfarb. And by the way, today toys are a $21 billion industry. And although fewer than 4% of the world's children are American, American children consume more than 40% of the toys. What do you think about that, right? So why Eddy Goldfarb? I got to show you this. This is a pair of chattering teeth. I know you've seen these. They have been around for a long time, and they came from this guy right here, Eddy Goldfarb. Eddy Goldfarb invented these among many, many, many other toys. And that's what I wanted to go through his entrepreneurship after World War II. He was born in 1921 in Chicago, Illinois, and his birth name was Adolf. Obviously, he thought that's not a good name when he was in his teenage years, and he changed it. But growing up, he had an interest in how things worked. And he even says that his favorite toy as a child was a broken radio. His dad, and they didn't have a whole lot of money, brought home a broken radio, and he spent hours taking it apart and putting it back together and figuring out how it worked. At the age of 12, his father died, which left him to help support the family, so he became a newspaper boy, then a grocery delivery boy, and then a soda jerk at a drugstore. And it was at this time that his friends started calling him Eddy instead of Adolf, as the rise of Adolf Hitler at the same time made it just not a good name to have. So he was a good student in math and science, and he wanted to go to college to study physics, but he knew that he couldn't pay for college. He was busy taking all of the money from the soda jerk family just to support his own family. So after the attack on Pearl Harbor, he enlisted in the Navy, and he managed to enroll in a Navy program for this new technology, radar. He studied electrical engineering and used his skills in radar, and the Navy eventually had him working in a secret radar lab. So because he was so skilled at this new thing called radar, it made him perfect for the submarine service, and he volunteered for duty on a Batfish sub that wasn't finished. So while he was at sea, he took with him clothing, books, and a spool of magnetic wire. He was really big on making little tiny motors in his spare time. On the ship, he invented a specialized radar antenna. As an electrician and inventor, he was always writing ideas in a notebook, and after the war, he had skills as an electrician. He had skills in radar, but he said, I really want to be an independent inventor. So he looked at his book and he said, what would I invent that I could sell that people would be interested in? And he noticed that he had been drawing a lot of toys. So he said, I'm going to start making toys. So his first successful invention was this one right here, the Yickety Yak Talking Teeth, which I have 2 pair of right here on my desk. He joined with a promoter by the name of Marvin Glass and the Novelty King, Irvin Fishlove, and his invention took off around 1949, just as television started entering homes at a huge increase in rate. That same year, he showcased 3 toys at the New York show, and from there, his inventions really took off. He set up a shop in his garage, and he continued to invent new toys. Most of them were unsuccessful for the first few years, but by 1957, his business had finally grown, and he moved out of his garage to employ 39 full-time staff in 3 buildings where they worked to perfect prototypes of toys. This guy is still alive. At the age of 99, he works in a retirement village where he works out of his garage, and since the Yickety Yak Talking Teeth, he has sold more than 800 different toys over his lifespan and holds over 300 different patents. So there you go, the success of Eddy Goldfarb. Thank you very much for taking the time. This is some really cool stuff. I've really enjoyed this class. I've enjoyed the discussions that we've had and learning more about entrepreneurship in the 1900s. And I will talk to you guys soon.